Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Medicine 3.0. This is your podcast for AI and healthcare, precision medicine, and performance health. So this week, we're going to touch on all three a little bit. This is Dr. Ryan Greene who joined me this week. He is the founder of Monarch Athletic Labs out in California. And this was a great conversation. We went deep on how do you help people live the longest, best life. I think you're really going to enjoy it. At the end of the day, I want you to think about how you can find the right tools to help you live this kind of life, just like Ryan is helping his members. And if you want to look into Monarch, if you're out in California, please do. All right. I'm super excited to welcome Ryan to the podcast. And Ryan, to start off, tell us how you got where you're at, knowing what you know.
Super interesting. Going through college, grad school, always wanted to do sports medicine, orthopedics, wanted to work with high performing individuals. Went to med school, had an incredible mentor who was the one of the team physicians for the Denver Broncos, Colorado Rockies. I'm not sure of your experience going through, but I think mentors are incredibly important, and being able to see how he treated patients, and the fact that he led a kid who was just relentless in terms of can I follow you into the operating room? Never said no. He cultivated my passion for the field. What he didn't prepare me for was once I got into residency and realized the reality of the situation, working with high performing individuals in a hospital setting, doesn't happen very often. And so I learned very quickly if my future was going to be working with that subset of people, it would be in addition to my rigorous practice, 60 to 80 hours a week. And he informed me later, he goes, here's the deal. One of three things is going to happen. You are going to get divorced, you will not see your kids, or both. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound great. Yeah, that doesn't sound awesome. So anyway, I made the decision to pivot from the surgical world, sports medicine world. To be honest, I didn't know where I was going to go. I was like, well, if I'm not in the hospital, what do I do? So I accepted a fellowship at Mayo Clinic, more clinical research in sports medicine, and spent a year writing grants, hoping to get money and funding for projects, and then trying to execute them on a pretty accelerated timeline so that you can rinse and repeat and try it year after year. It was a great experience. Mayo Clinic was incredible for what they do, but I learned very quickly if you're trying to research anything that is in the preventative medicine world, what we call medicine 3.0 now, it's tough. It's tough to find funding because there's, it's not often there's something proprietary, patentable, and that's, just as well as I do, and maybe the people listening know or don't, but it's hard to get funding for something that's not going to be incredibly profitable or potentially change the course of medicine. So at that point, it was pretty discouraging. I'm more aware of it now than I think I was at the time, but depression was probably pretty real because I'd spent my entire life trying to get to a certain point, and I didn't want to be there anymore. And then now what do I do? My parents are like, go into emergency medicine. At least you can work a couple shifts. I'm just like, that doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right. Around that time, so this was about 10 years ago, the conversation around recovery and performance and optimization started coming up. Articles about LeBron spending $1 million a year on his recovery protocol. And people are like, this is insane. What does LeBron do? And so now people are going to cryo clubs and all this other stuff. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And as an athlete myself, one of the things that I was thinking about is why are the resources and the knowledge reserved for only college and professional athletes? My body functions the same way. I don't have anything different. You don't have anything different. But my arena that I perform in happens to be in the hospital, the operating theater. Yours is, the emergency room and the boardroom. And if you feel like garbage and you can't perform your job very well, the outcomes are going to be the same. You're going to lose your opportunities. So that started the wheels turning. And then, truth be told, one weekend, because I don't know if you've ever been to Rochester where Mayo Clinic is, it's not Minneapolis and it's not close to Minneapolis. I thought it was. It is not. So anyway, I had nothing to do on the weekend. So I went to Mall of America and I just like sat there and looked around. I'm like, oh, I get it. People can drive. They park their car. They can stay here for days. They have everything that they need. People want that. And so that was really kind of like the catalyst to allow me to start thinking about, well, what would a one-stop shop look like for health and wellness? And in my mind, what I wanted to emphasize with this concept was I believe people are starting to understand and appreciate that exercise is important. It's something that they should do on a regular basis. If I was to query you and said, hey, Jared, would you consider yourself a healthy person? Most people's first response is like, yeah, I exercise and, I do all that. Like no one says like, yeah, my A1C is 5.3 and like my cholesterol levels are good. Like no one ever says that. Right. So that was kind of like, all right, well, this needs to be the carrot that we dangle, which is like, you're going to come to a place where like you can exercise and train, and we are going to bundle in all these areas that we consider foundational for health promotion, medicine, physical therapy, nutrition, recovery, all in one spot. What I failed to appreciate was the impact and the importance of community. And we designed our clubs. We have 2 now. We're about to open 3. And then by the end of 26, we'll have 3 more. So we'll have 6. We designed our clubs to be smaller in size, roughly around 200 to 300 members, slightly more depending on the footprint. But we did that because when I was reading this book called Sapiens, one of the things they mentioned was like communities traditionally happen to be around 300 people because it's a manageable population size where people can actually know each other and, develop relationships. So almost by default, we realized not only from a business standpoint, not opening 100,000 square foot facilities like traditional big box entities, having smaller spaces allows us to open more of them. And what we are realizing is we can have many of these smaller clubs in many communities, cities around the country and the world, and they all operate the same way. They're all functioning with the same foundational principles. The club in West Hollywood looks different than the club in Brentwood. They're 5 miles apart, but like the populations are radically different. So the look, the feel, a little bit different, reflective of that space, but the foundational functionality is the same. And, we really pride ourselves on the fact that, you're not tied to one trainer, one physical therapist, one nutritionist, one medical professional. Like everything that we're doing is considered like universally important to promote health. So you can book any trainer at any club at any time. You can go and get your blood work done at any club at any time. And we are confident that the way that your results and your program are going to be interpreted or adjusted are consistent, because at the end of the day, like, a highly executed front squat is the same whether you're in Miami or you're in Milan. And diabetes is diabetes, so all these numbers and the communication. And I think, to make it even more simple is like the more complex the system becomes, the greater the acknowledgement that you've failed to solve like the foundational elements. And so we just wanted to be super good at the very foundational principles and then have the ability to also extend our scope as necessary. So, our early adopters are paying, it's not inexpensive, but ultimately it's less than what they typically spend on their healthcare in aggregate per month. But they all listen to Huberman and Attia, and they're like, tell me about rapamycin, tell me about peptides. And we get to be, a space where they can have that conversation. And also we are comfortable enough where we can also say like, those things are not going to be helpful until you build a better sleep routine, improve your cholesterol profile. Like, so, at the end of the day, like almost everything we're doing is like so simple, but we're not doing anything or, supporting anything different than what you would consider like a blue zone lifestyle. And I feel strongly like until we as a community really get those foundational elements, solidified, like we are going to have to continue to figure out creative solutions to solve very basic problems. And yeah, like not necessarily we'll talk about on this podcast, but like the GLP-1 situation, like it's, like, it's a very real thing. The question that we always ask is like, all right, like, is this the route that you need to go? Or could you potentially work with a nutritionist and build better practices that you're going to carry the rest of your life? And I think that is a daunting thing about health. And even if you're coming at it from a precision medicine standpoint, like basic health behaviors, health promoting behaviors, longevity behaviors, like these are things that you have to do the rest of your life. So like, are you going to take rapamycin the rest of your life? Are you going to be able to stick with an NAD protocol the rest of your life? You're going to eat every day. You're going to sleep every day. You're hopefully going to drink water every day. Hopefully you're going to move your body. Like those are the things that we really need to make sure that you understand before we, progress into the higher levels of care. So, at the bare minimum, we've found success because we have a multidisciplinary approach. People love the fact that they are a part of a community where they get to know people, and we're doing very simple things where if they just show up, they'll do well. Like, and that's the simplest part. So that's my journey in a nutshell. And like, part of the reason I wanted to do surgery, truth be told, is like, I didn't really want to have relationships with patients. I was like, I don't really want to get to know about your like family history. Like, I'd rather just like meet you, cut on you, see you. So the irony is like, turns out like I actually really do enjoy like getting to know patients and like learning more about them. And like, I really do think it's important. And, I think especially from a health standpoint where like it's a sensitive topic, it requires, vulnerability to like actually share what's going on. Having this relationship where people get to come into a place and see like their doctor's also deadlifting and he's doing pull-ups and he's sitting in the sauna with them. Like, I really do think it allows people to open up a little more, because I'm sure you've had experiences and people listening where they walk into a doctor's office, they're like, that person does not look healthy. Like, why are they telling me what to do? I'm like, they clearly aren't doing this. So like, why am I going to listen to it? So, I think we've done really well because we've just really broken things down to their simplest and most fundamental aspect.
Awesome. There's several things I want to pull out from what you just talked about. One, like, people don't realize that the doctors of professional teams usually pay to be their doctor.
Totally. For free.
Right? Like, everybody thinks, oh, those doctors, they have the best life because they're the doctors for the Broncos or the Panthers or whatever. And usually those doctors are paying for the privilege to
100%.
to take care of those patients. And it's cool. But yeah, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, I'll touch on that last point you made. My mom and dad were going to the same doctor, and the doctor was telling my mom she needs to lose weight. My dad, he was actually much more obese than my mom. And my mom was like, I'm not going to listen to that doctor. The guy weighs like 350 pounds. Like,
yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's really important to like walk the walk and so that your patients trust you. And then the other thing, and then I want to ask you a little bit more about Monarch, because I want people to understand, like, where is Monarch? It's only in certain places, not available to everybody. Is there like any plan for like virtualization in the future, stuff like that? But the other thing that I think is really interesting is that progression of yours of kind of going from, I want to be a high performing surgeon, to I really just want to help people be as healthy as possible. And how can I do that? And it's not easy. Like, there is no practice you could have just gone to do that. And the fact that you created a practice that contains all this is pretty remarkable. So that's a point that I'll make. Thanks. Then I'll ask, tell us a little bit more about Monarch, where it's located.
Yeah.
If people hear about this and they're like, oh, that sounds amazing, I want to go find it.
No. So we opened our first club in West Hollywood in January of 2020, January 6th.
Oh, geez.
Very interesting.
Perfect timing.
I know.
Perfect timing.
I know, right? Crazy day to open based on what was happening in the United States. And then 2 months later, pandemic. And like complete divine intervention, in the sense that I believed when we were creating this that long-term establishing ourselves as a medical facility would allow us to tap into potentially insurance reimbursement down the road. because it's medically monitored, medically directed. I had no understanding or, premonition that the world would shut down. And we as an entity were one of the only like legally allowable institutions to stay open because we were considered essential. If that had not happened, this conversation would not be happening. So like, I have to believe that I have, a higher power kind of like guiding me here, because I was really motivated. I'm like, there's got to be a world at some point where there's going to be, the version of safe driver discount for car insurance, but for health. Because like pretty much everyone who's listening to this, I guarantee is going to say, yeah, like, why do I pay so much for insurance? It doesn't actually cover anything. I still have to pay a lot of money. Like, why am I doing this? So I was like thinking, okay, well, if we want to tap into the medical establishment, like you got to play the game. If it's medically directed, medically monitored, you're monitoring basic objective data, heart disease risk, diabetes risk, body composition. Like that will probably help us at some point in the future. I did not realize that it was going to be necessary like 2 months into our existence, but yeah, that is what it is. So we opened West Hollywood January of 2020. Fortunately we were successful, partially because we were the only thing open. We opened our second club in April of 2023 in Brentwood. So if you're familiar with LA, the 405 cuts right through it. If you live east of it, you don't go west. If you live west of it, you don't go east. It's basically the border between the US and Canada. And so even though they're 5 miles apart, like it's very hard to get people to go from one place to the other. So we wanted to service people on the west side of LA. That club has been, I'm sitting in Brentwood right now, incredibly successful, far more successful than I could have ever imagined. And I think it just is a testament to the fact that people want outcomes. And, we are starting to appreciate the value of investing in ourselves, because ultimately, as we age, I think one of the most painful penalties anyone can experience is not being able to enjoy their life, not being able to participate in things that bring them happiness and joy. And sadly, for most people, 55, 60, 65, you start to lose capacity. Can't play tennis, can't play pickleball, can't play golf. And then before you know it, you're the grandpa sitting in the chair and, it's just kind of like, that's it. So, the west side of LA is a little bit older, a little bit more like family oriented. So it's really resonated with this population. We're opening end of this year in Playa Vista, which some people call Silicon Beach. It's like in between Venice, so a little bit south of where we are now, and LAX. A lot of tech folks down there, a lot of younger families. So we feel pretty confident that we will do well in that area, because there's just not a lot of like high quality health and wellness. And again, like there are really good, anti-aging and functional med and precision med docs out here, but like to the point that I made initially, like, people are busy. They have a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard for them to even build time in to get like exercise or movement in. So like, we really wanted to make sure that like we're delivering, the medical and the longevity and that kind of stuff. But like, what's going to get someone to, are you going to go to your doctor, the longevity doctor's office, like once a week, once a month? Like, probably not. Like we've really created a habitual pattern where most people see their physician once a year. So like there's still more time and psychology to be adjusted to get people to understand, like, I need to be more proactive. I need to get my blood done every 3 to 6 months versus once a year or once every 2 years. So, yeah, like the movement part's, very important in terms of what we do. So Playa Vista opens end of the year. Then we're going to do Miami next year, Pasadena, which is kind of north side of LA, Newport Beach. And then we've got, opportunities in Scottsdale, Nashville, Vegas. And we're just kind of like taking things as they come. Like I said, the beauty of this model is it's relatively smaller. It doesn't require a ton of space. Like both of our clubs now are ground level units in commercial real estate buildings. So like, it's very easy for us to fit in structures that already exist, which I think is a benefit for us. So we're going to continue to open clubs, hopefully, 1 or 2 a year, and just, keep going and growing. New York's a huge market we want to go to, Dallas, Chicago, like all places that we would do incredibly well. And then the nice thing is our price point fluctuates based on, rent and cost of labor. So, what we charge in LA wouldn't necessarily what we charge in Raleigh or Durham. Like it's, it wouldn't make sense, but we have flexibility in what we do so that we have the ability to exercise those opportunities so that it's an achievable opportunity. And, like we're never going to be Planet Fitness. That's not our model, and that's totally fine for people where that resonates. But I think for us, it's going to be, people that are high performers in some area of their life or livelihood right now and understand the value of investing in themselves. I tell pretty much every patient, like what we're doing here is no different than compounding in business. Like if you make good decisions consistently over time, you're going to get exponentially greater results. So, but it's not free. You have to invest. Like it's not just going to happen. And in terms of virtual, like we discussed offline, we're building out a virtual platform just because we've identified a lot of pain points in terms of like, we have patients come in, they have an Oura ring, they have a Whoop band, they have a Fitbit, all great. But we're sitting there with like multiple screens and they're like, hey, here's my Oura data. I'm like, great, here's your lab PDF, and let's also look at our training portal so we can figure out like what your VO2 max has been doing. There's nothing yet that really integrates all those things well. They're starting to develop. So I think we have an opportunity to create a full stack solution that's not only just performance oriented, but also like as a functional business tool, because, if people are listening to this that are operators of health and wellness clubs, like, and I won't toss anyone's name under the bus, but like the current systems are inadequate for what people should expect or need moving forward. So I think there's an opportunity there. And if that allows the Monarch ecosystem to somehow impact, hundreds of millions of people, whether it's an in-person experience or a virtual experience, like I think there's an opportunity there. And, maybe it's integrating Bionic Health as our EHR. Like there's all sorts of things. Like we don't necessarily need to remake the wheel, but I think there's a lot of cool tech that we can ultimately, integrate in one space and impact a lot of people.
Yeah. It's such a cool story. My wife, when she listens to this podcast, is going to be like, you were talking about that in 2015, a gym and a doctor's office being in one place.
Yeah.
And so I love that you did it. I think it's such a good point that like people will go to the gym maybe 3 times a week. You don't want to go to the doctor 3 times a week, but you might need blood every 3 months. And it's interesting to see like the big box, like Equinox trying to like do something in the longevity space, and, Lifetime trying to do something in the longevity space. And I think where Monarch is always going to win when I think about the big box guys versus what you're building is really around that community. I think that's such an important insight that, you get people together, they're doing the same things, they love it. That's super cool.
Yeah. And I was at a wellness conference last week, and, Lifetime Fitness was there, Equinox was there, Canyon Ranch was there, like all the big players, and they're all talking about longevity. And like, there are very talented and intelligent people that are spearheading those initiatives. But like one price point is definitely something. I think our model is unique, and it's a flat fee. Like it's monthly and you get unlimited access. You could use a trainer every day. You could use physical therapy every day. And to your point, our average member usage per week is like 2 to 3 times a week. Like there's just something about that like ethos in our psychology where it's like, if I work out 3 times a week, I'm doing pretty well. And I'm like, no, you need to be like, you need to do something every day, like move your body every day. It doesn't have to be vigorous and strenuous, but like, 3 times a week is oftentimes not enough. But to your point, like, and Tony Robbins just announced he's opening like longevity resorts. Again, like price point, it's not for everybody, which is great. But to your point, like if you're just going to a place 1 week out of the year, or maybe 2 weeks out of the year, what do you do and how do you support your day to day when you're not in that environment that's like, purposely conducive towards you being healthy? My mom used to go to Canyon Ranch all the time. She comes back, she passed recently, but like not because she didn't go to Canyon Ranch enough, but like, but like she'd come back and she's making green smoothies for like a week or two. And then like, it's hard because we're in Chicago. We didn't have Whole Foods, and like, where are you going to find all this stuff? And eventually like you taper off and then you go back to Canyon Ranch and you bounce up. So I really do think, to your point, like the secret sauce of what we're doing is absolutely the fact that I see the same people 3 to 4 times a week. And then they start to develop relationships with people they see here that they see out at their tennis club now. Like, oh, you go to Monarch, or like they see him at a restaurant. Like, I don't think there's an equation or like a specific recipe that says this is going to happen. I think it happens organically, but it's more likely to happen the more frequently you're putting yourself in that environment. And that's why, I really do think we will continue to be successful. As, we're not doing anything revolutionary, as I mentioned, but we are absolutely creating a lifestyle that people are resonating with. And our demo's 32 to, actually we have a 17-year-old now. So we got a couple like high school kids, but, roughly 32 to about 75 or 80. Like we're, and it works, whether you're super young or super old.
Yeah. You say you're not doing anything revolutionary, but I would disagree. I mean, it seems obvious, right? But you don't see very many people doing this and doing it well. And I think one thing that you pointed out that was really good is I think the solutions are simple. Like the solutions for people's personal health are generally fairly simple. But I think there is a lot of complexity in there, and people get paralyzed by the complexity. Like even how do I start working out? Like how do I start eating healthy? Like even though it is, eating, sleeping, recovery, working out, like those kinds of things. And so I think like taking that complexity and making it simple is part of the magic that you guys, I'm sure, kind of do. So how do you think through that? How do you make it as easy as possible for somebody to go through a change?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I'll kind of give you our onboarding journey. So every member who joins, regardless of who you are, is going to meet with the medical team, history, physical, body composition, whether it's in body or psyche, basic blood work. So I say it's basic. It's like a longevity panel. So everything you get in primary care, plus we're doing ApoB, lipoprotein A, we're doing hormones, we're doing markers of inflammation, vitamin D. And then depending on the individual, we can add a couple other things in there, just kind of based on what they show up with. So that's all done week 1. And then we meet with them week 2, just to, go through their data, especially blood work, and also kind of go through what meds are you on? What supplements are you on? Do you still need to be on all these things? Why are you taking them? I hear every single day, like, why am I taking, berberine? Like, someone told me to take it. I'm like, okay, well, like, all right, well, do we still need to be taking it? Like, how long have you been taking it? Have you noticed anything? So we have time, and every visit with us, whether it's training, physical therapy, medicine, nutrition, it's an hour. So we have plenty of time to like sit down with people and go through it. We're not in a time crunch. After med, they meet with physical therapy, joint by joint assessment, problem focused, much more orthopedic related. Sometimes it's just, head to toe, anything hurt, problem focused. Other times we have a lot of people coming in that are pre-op or post-op, and we have objective metrics and technology like force plates and like, I don't know if you've ever used Vault, but like they have a force frame, so we can measure, flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, and like actually put like, objective data on that so that you can look and track over time. Like, are things actually getting better? Not only subjectively, but objectively. Our physical therapists are incredible at that. And then we do a 2-day strength assessment. So day 1 is purely like basic movement patterns. How do you squat? How do you hinge? How do you push? How do you pull? We take people through a full set of mobility movements, controlled articular rotations. Strength and conditioning coaches will know that as CARs. That's something that every member is going to do every session, no matter what. Our strength and conditioning coaches are relentless. Like, even if you show up 5 minutes late, you don't just get to jump into the session. You're doing your mobility. So we teach them all those movements day 1. And then day 2 is performance, push-up test, pull-up test, grip strength, VO2 max, if we think it's valuable or they are capable of performing it. And then we build a program, and our strength team divvies up responsibility. We make sure that everyone's program is continuously updated, typically every 4 weeks. We meet as a medical team with the member every 3 months, just check in. How are you doing? Are we achieving the goals we set? Do we want to set new goals? Do we need to revisit? And then they also, week 1, I forgot to mention nutrition. So they get a 1-hour nutrition assessment. And the nice thing about nutrition is, like, we're totally agnostic. The best plan for you is the one that you can stick with. So if you need to meet with a nutritionist every week so you can hand over your calorie counting or whatever, great. If it's just, what are some ideas for recipes? Great, you can do that. But they have no limit in terms of how often they can meet with anyone. And one of the things we're working on, especially with nutrition, where everyone says, like, I want a nutritionist. When the nutritionist tells you, like, you need to change your behavior, you see a precipitous drop off and follow up, because, like, sometimes people just don't want to hear that I can't have these things anymore or whatever. So we're working on ways to allow that lifestyle change to be better adopted. But that's our typical onboarding experience. And then beyond that, it's quarterly check-ins. We do quarterly performance testing just to make sure that we're building strength and capacity. And then physical therapy is there to kind of like catch people when things start to not feel right. But I think for us, like, as a multidisciplinary unit, unless you need imaging or some sort of advanced intervention or surgery, there's pretty much nothing that we can't do in-house. Again, which from a convenience standpoint is, like, incredibly valuable, because, we were talking before we were recording, and, like, a member just walked in, and I know he wants to talk about a supplement. And so I'll just go find him after his session and after we're done, and, we'll hash it out. So, like, I think how do you put a price on that? Like, I don't know if you can, but we know that it really does resonate well with people.
Oh yeah. I mean, just the usage numbers that you quoted, that if you have people coming in on average 2 to 3 times a week, I mean, if you look at usage numbers at gyms, they don't even have 2/3 of their members coming every week. And so
Correct.
Having everybody coming on average 2 to 3 times a week, that's really remarkable. I'm curious. So you've been at this, I guess a little over 3 years. Mm-hmm. And can you tell us about, like, any transformations that you've seen with your patients kind of going through this that you think are like a good story of what somebody could expect when they go from, not focusing on their health to really, really focusing?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll just kind of give, like, general highlights. Like, we see a lot of improvement in metabolic disease risk. So people coming in pre-diabetic or, definitely within high risk categories for potential heart disease in the future. And, just little lifestyle changes, focusing more on a sleep routine, being aware of, like, how much water they should drink, things we talk about on our medical intake, and having people come back and not only seeing that their risk, their risk ratios are decreasing, but also, like, I feel so much better. I've cut down my alcohol, like, and I feel great. I'm sleeping better. I'm drinking more water. Like, I'm seeing that my body fat is decreasing. Maybe not as much as, I would like, but, I'm making these changes and I'm committed and I'm going to continue with it. Like, we see that a lot from a medical standpoint, is just overall improved quality of life, energy, cognitive performance, sleep performance. And then from a body composition, like, at some point we're going to have to figure out, like, how many pounds we've helped people lose, but, like, the aesthetic is not our goal. I think the next, area I'll go into is, we're seeing, the young lady that I had just before we started recording, early 40s, just did her performance assessment, like her follow-up quarter, did a pull-up. Never done a pull-up in her life. That's huge, especially for, like, a 40-something-year-old woman. Came in and could do, like, 10 knee push-ups, now can do 10, like, full push-ups. That's enormous, especially from a longevity standpoint. we have 50, 60-year-old men who are like, my deadlift has increased 100 pounds. And like, how does that, impact your daily life? Like, but like, I don't know exactly, but I know for a fact that like, if you're strong enough to be able to pick things up off the ground and then put them up somewhere, like that will probably help you down the road. So we're seeing like incredible performance data just in terms of like things that people never thought were possible or assumed just because I'm this age, these are the things that I won't be able to do. We're blasting through those barriers. So that's pretty cool. And then like from a physical therapy standpoint, man, like our PTs are so good. Like they are taking people who come in and have been resigned to the fact that they are going to have surgery for something because the images look like this and the consults said that. And our team's just like, maybe, but let's also like, help you improve your mobility, help you improve your core strength. Like, and the cool part about our system, which I didn't really speak to earlier, is all of our physical therapists are also CFCS strength and conditioning coaches. So at some point in their life, like that was an important part of their routine. So, their mantra is physical therapy is physical, right? It's not just going to be sitting there. They throw stim, they throw heat, they're rubbing on you. Like they're going to get you moving. And for some people, like it's an incredible value that you get to like train, but you're also training with someone who views you with the knowledge and the eyes of a physical therapist. And we're seeing people who said like, I'm just coming here because I want to lose weight before surgery. And then a year later, like never had to have surgery. Like I feel better than I've ever felt. And like those things are really, really cool. Yeah. And so that's kind of like an aggregate, like things that I see. I mean, we're doing 600 visits a week in Brentwood. We're doing 450, 500 visits a week. So like we're seeing a lot of people come through. The one area that we just started, which I'm super passionate about, is mental health. So we call it Monarch Mind. So we have had a life coach where he unfortunately had to move and went into a different type of practice. But like we have a neuroscience group that does neurofeedback. So they're doing brain scans and, helping people understand where, supplements or potentially neurofeedback or certain types of meditation behaviors may help improve the quality of their brain health. I think that's incredibly important. Long-term, kind of a hot topic, somewhat, polarizing. I think psychedelic assisted therapy is something that would be very helpful at some point, not because I think, it's the cure all, but I have found that people that are struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD typically also do not have the healthiest sleep behavior, nutrition behavior, movement behavior, and also are oftentimes metabolically a little bit out of balance, especially in the hormone space. So I really do feel like if we can get, and develop the mental health space, we really can help a lot of people. So like that's what I'm excited about is not only what we're doing, but where we're going, which is exciting.
Well, I ask you for a specific story and I love that you can't really give it because you have so many, right? And you've seen like these trends, and you spoke a lot to like physical performance, like, deadlift getting stronger, mid 40s female being able to do a pull-up. That's probably like 90th percentile for strength for a woman that age,
and you've seen it in the emergency room is like people come in, old ladies, fractured hips, old men, fractured hips.
Yep.
The issue is not that they broke their hip. The issue is that they fell and they were on the ground for 3 to 6 hours before someone found them. Like you cannot overemphasize the importance of being able to push yourself off the ground or pull yourself up from something or grip something. And like, they seem like such like archaic and like rudimentary metrics, but like they become a problem. And, like, I don't know how often you travel, but it's become very acutely aware in my mind. Like when you get on a plane, the amount of people that need assistance to like get down the jet bridge, put their bag in the, like, I'm just like, something is not right here because like we are losing the capacity to just like do typical activities of daily living. So, for us, the fact that someone can like lift their body weight, like that's huge. Like it's amazing.
It is. And so a couple things. I think our population continues to age, and we've got the boomer bubble coming. And so we're going to see more of those people on the jetway. And I just traveled last week, and it was like 6 people on my plane that were waiting for a wheelchair. And it seems like a few years ago it was just one. And then the other thing is, it's interesting to hear you talk about there's this initial investment in screening for disease, but then after that, really most of the investment is building strength and mobility. And like, when people ask me, like, what's your number one, like, what's your one tip for people? And to me, longevity comes down to a very simple equation. It is freedom from disease and building as much muscle, as much strength, and as much mobility for as long as possible. If you do those things, then you solve the equation. Now that's simple, but then the reason that I think what you're doing is so awesome is it's complex for people to figure out all those different things. People aren't experts. And like, even your physical therapists who are strength coaches, like, that's so important. I know that we have to keep this kind of short this time. Maybe I'll be able to get you back on here, but before we finish up, anything that you would like people to know, anything you want to leave people with?
I mean, I think for us, like, totally selfish, from a Monarch business standpoint, like, part of how we grew and have grown is we found people that are interested in health and longevity and want to see a Monarch Club where they live. So, if you have a group of people or a group of folks that invest and want to invest in something that will become a part of a larger network of like-minded longevity focused people, reach out, because we don't have a specific roadmap where we have to follow these cities at this certain time. Like, so, if you want to get involved with what we're doing, by all means, reach out and we can see if we can find a creative solution to help get a Monarch where you guys are, as fast as possible.
That's awesome. Ryan, it's been a pleasure. I hadn't met you before, man. And so it was great meeting you. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, you too.
And
thanks,
appreciate your time.
Yeah, you as well, man. And it's incredible. Anyone who's been a founder of anything, I now have the utmost respect for, because it's not for the faint of heart. So congrats with all you're doing as well.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Medicine 3.0. We make this podcast so that you know where to turn for good information on keeping you and your loved ones healthy. Feel free to check us out at bionichealth.com, where we can help you live a longer, happier life.